Welcome back to round number 3 here at Guardian Games, Modern Monday. We have Demir Mill versus Is It Phoenix. Seems like an interesting matchup here. Usually Phoenix is wanting to be milling themselves, and Jeremy is going to be doing that for their opponent, but I imagine that Jeremy has some number of surgical extraction type effects in their deck, which could be very strong against a threat light deck like Is It Phoenix.
Yep. Usually they run 3 to 4 surgical extractions and 3 to 4 expedite. So this could be really bad for Austin.
Okay, we had a Hedron Crab as the turn 1 play for Jeremy James, and then a Field of Ruin, which is going to trigger the Crab and mill Austin for 3. Austin fetches in response, so hopefully he doesn't get the card that he wants milled, but we get a Blood Crypt. And I see a Blood Moon hanging out there. I see Young Pyromancer, Colgan's Command. I think we have Austin actually is going to be on Mardu, not Is It Phoenix.
Yeah.
Kind of little error on deck identification there. Which also, Mardu is fine if you end up milling them as well. They've got Lingering Souls. That's interesting. Got a Manamorphose in there too. One colorless for Jeremy. Nope. Thinking about what play they're gonna make.
If he was to go for 2 mana, that'd be the Mesmeric Orb, I believe. Especially with a second source being colorless, because every other 2 mana spell they have is typically blue-black.
Oh, definitely. Yep, you got Glimpse there, which is kind of the premier 2-drop from Mill. And a Shock from Austin, who's thinking, oh, the life totals aren't what this game's about. I've seen the Hedron Crab here.
I'm thinking, so Austin does have a Phoenix in his hand.
Okay.
So maybe this is kind of a brew, maybe a Grixis.
Okay, we got a
deck.
red off of Manamorphose, another red off of Manamorphose, Storm 2, 2 spells cast. Is there a Faithless Looting? We got a Looting.
Yeah.
Drawing 2, and then discarding 2. At least 1 Phoenix, 2 Phoenixes shoved to the top. 2 Phoenixes in the graveyard. They are going to get a trigger. That was the 3rd Instant Sorcery.
Do we have... No, we do have the Surgical.
Surgical targeting, I would assume, Arclight Phoenix here.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a hand of Gutshot, Marsh Flats, Young Pyromancer, Bloodstained Mire, Colgan's Command. I can't quite make out what that other red card is.
I can't either. But it looks like it is a Mardu Young Pyromancer Phoenix, and I believe there are Lingering Souls in his deck while Jeremy was searching.
It's really been interesting to see this, these Phoenix decks develop, where they kind of just get pitched into all these other decks that were already running Faithless Lootings to generate card advantage off of using your graveyard. And so, you know, you have your, like, Mardu deck that Jerry Thompson played, and, oh, that's a Flame Jab there, by the way. And then you have, you know, the Hollow One decks, and then you have sort of the Thing in the Ice decks, and all of them were just like, well, we're already playing Faithless Looting, so let's just throw in some Phoenixes.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeremy moving to 3rd turn of the game.
Looks like he's got a Fatal Push in hand. That would be that'll be a great answer to the Young Pyromancer.
There's been a couple mill list 5.0 online pretty regularly since they've started doing the weird. We're posting all the 5.0 lists that have 25 cards difference on MTGO.
I think because the mill lists run the 7 to 8 surgical extractions essentially in the deck, it's currently really good across the meta.
Surgical does seem great right now. As much as sometimes it's just an awful card, currently I would probably say its stock is at the highest that it's been in Modern, perhaps ever.
Yeah. Because if he has another surgical, I could see the Fatal Push and then surgical to Young Pyromancer, and then Austin only, I believe when he was searching, only has Lingering Souls left in the deck.
You didn't see any Bedlam Revelers in the list?
I do not believe, maybe there's 1 or 2, but I did not see any.
Okay, Jeremy going for a push on the young Pyromancer, Austin going for a gut shot to deal 1 to Jeremy and get some kind of board presence here with an elemental token. Jeremy is a very long-standing regular player here at Guardian. Very good player, has a wide access to cards, has and I mean this in the most loving way possible. Definitely plays some janky things every now and then, and you know I love it when something like Jeremy's had a mill deck for a long time, and when one of those things that players consider jank or like not a real deck then suddenly becomes a real deck, that brings me great joy. And Flame Jab going to work and getting in for 1 with the Elemental.
Got an 18 turn clock now. Jeremy's definitely hurting because he's got at least another glimpse of the Unthinkable in hand.
That is, with traditional Mardu decks, that one of the issues that they have is not being able to put a lot of quick pressure on the opponent, where with something like Jund or even Green-Black, you have your Tarmogoyf as your 2-drop. Mardu just has Young Pyromancer, which can go wide, but also can be very slow. And from there it scales up to, you got Lingering Souls, Bedlam Reveler, so the games generally tend to go long, and you want to utilize a card like Blood Moon to slow your opponents down, which Blood Moon on this board would be fairly strong. I'm curious if Jeremy draws a fetch land, if he's going to play around with Blood Moon by fetching a basic and then activating Field of Ruin. Flame Jab continuing to get retraced, which I'm
surprised because Austin has the Lingering Souls in hand. He could have deployed it and turned a faster clock for next turn.
And also, when you're playing a Faithless Looting deck, just having those lands in your hand that you can then turn into real cards seems like that's maybe an aggressive use of resources.
Yeah. Because I do not see any non-fetches in his graveyard either, so I'm not really sure why. My only other thought is maybe the land that he could have searched with his fetch could have been already milled, but I don't think that's the case here.
Okay. Jeremy going to 16. Maybe thinking about how much he values Blood Moon in this matchup as an out that Austin could have to slow down the game enough to win. If I'm at 16 right now, I would play around Blood Moon by just activating Field of Ruin to get my other basic, but Jeremy is going to cast Glimpse the Unthinkable and get the mill plan going. Oh, there is the Bedlam Reveler. And it's 10 cards.
Perfect if he has the Surgical for the Lingering Souls right about now, because the last card in Austin's hand is the Lingering Souls. Ooh.
And you called it. Jeremy on Austin's draw step is going to surgically extract the Lingering Souls to leave Austin with just a Sacred Foundry in hand.
So that leaves only a handful of Young Pyromancers and maybe 1 or 2 Bedlam Revelers left in the deck.
Also, when you're playing against the mill strategy, I really don't like pitching the Flame Jab, the lands to the Flame Jab there, because your opponent's probably going to mill over a Faithless Looting at some point. Blood Moon would have been really devastating at
Yep.
this point of the game, though.
I think, you know, Jeremy, seeing the Blood Moon's probably going to try to play around in the next match. Is that Snapcaster here Jeremy drew?
When guilds first got spoiled and Mission Briefing showed up, people are going a little bit nuts over that, and in general, Snapcaster Mage is going to always be a better card. It's less mana intensive.
You get a body.
It's true, but I feel like the one deck that in Modern where that isn't necessarily the case is in Mill, because you can flash back your traps.
Yes.
Which is something you can't do with Snapcaster. You can't pay alternate costs with Snapcaster because it technically has flashback, but Mission Briefing uh, does not have flashback. It just allows you to cast a card from your graveyard. And Jeremy's surveilling too. Yep, one of those should
Oh,
be the
that should be surveil.
graveyard.
Yep.
Is not Scry. Is sometimes even better than Scry.
Surveil really hasn't made it a modern as much.
Ah, Visions of Beyond. So good. Jeremy just cast the Ancestral Recall. Also one of my favorite arts on a card, Therese Nelson.
She's definitely up there for favorite artists out there.
Blood Moon's still a live draw for Austin.
But I mean, Jeremy's got the double blue. He still get Archive Trap. Like Jeremy still has a lot of. I mean, and Austin's probably under 30 cards at this point.
Yeah, although pretty much except for Archive Trap, your mill spells are gonna cost black. You do have Hedron Crab, but then that gets less effective when you don't have fetch lands. Foil Visions of Beyond, one of my favorite foils as well.
I don't think I've ever seen a foil.
It looks really good.
Definitely could see it with that art. Seeing the one swamp, I think Austin's mill is the only swamp. Knowing the Mardu mana base.
Oh, the irony. Was reading Field of Ruin. Probably curious if they have to shuffle their library.
Which, in this case, it is. I don't think we've seen an Archive Trap from Jeremy yet.
Jeremy going for the alternate plan of reducing his opponent's life total to 0 with a -2/-2 on the elemental and a drain. Yep, there's that Faithless Looting.
I see at least another Field of Ruins in Jeremy's hand.
Still just on game 1 here. Okay, basic lands.
Okay.
Are those APAC lands that Jeremy's playing? Or are those Mirage?
They are, I think those are Mirage. Those are not APAC.
Oh, Portal Second Age. Their producer chimes in. That is their favorite land. I think we're going to try to get a picture of that up here on our overlay. Are you a fan?
Yeah. I definitely prefer a lot of the older art like 8th and 9th edition, I would say.
Okay.
I myself have a collection of, I believe, Invasion Islands.
Ooh. Yeah, I do like the old border a lot, especially old border foils where you just have that foil on the borders and that really pops. And we get an Archive Trap.
Oh.
Not very many cards left in Austin's deck.
I think there was 2 more Bedlam Revelers in that, so he doesn't have that many more answers. And if this is another Archive Trap, this is probably game right here.
Was that could you tell what kind of swamp Austin had? Was that one of the game day promos?
I could not tell. I was not paying attention to
I
it.
think it was a game day promo. They gave this out a couple, maybe 6 months ago or something.
Okay. Yep.
Could be a year. I don't know. Time flies these days.
After messing up everything else, I found it.
Ooh, there we go. And we get that sweet hot air balloon in the background.
That is a gorgeous art.
Alright, Austin scoops them up. And head to the sideboard. Got any ideas of these players' sideboards, Tim?
All I can imagine is if Austin has any more hand disruption, he'll bring that in. besides that, there's not really much his deck. I mean, he could potentially just add cards to the sideboard just to have more cards in his main deck. I've done that in the past against Mill, where I just added 5 extra cards just in case I get milled.
Yeah, it's kind of like buffering your life total by
Yeah.
a couple points against burn or something.
I mean, because the Mardu deck, well, we don't really know, because so far we've seen it's like a Phoenix hybrid Mardu deck where it just has a bunch of cantrips, a bunch of little incidental damage. I mean, we see the Inquisitions there. I mean, if he has any Thought Seizes, Duresses, or more Collective Brutalities from the sideboard, we could potentially see that coming in. Otherwise, I don't really see much coming in from the Mardu Pyromancer side of the board.
I think Flame Jabs definitely are on their way out in that matchup. You probably keep in some number of Lightning Bolts to be able to kill a Hedron Crab. I could see if you have a Wear Tear, or even explosives in your sideboard, perhaps bringing that in. A lot of the ways these decks are able to win is kind of like Burn, where you, like Burn, is able to do a couple points of damage with a creature, and those creatures for Mill's side are your permanents that are gonna, if they even get a couple mills in, will add up to milling your entire deck. And explosives usually deals with them. They're all in 1 or 2.
See, the one thing, I haven't looked at a Mill list in a long time. What can you imagine coming from their sideboard?
Depending on how many surgical effects are in the main deck, you might have some more extra fates in the sideboard,
Yeah.
especially in this matchup where Austin is pretty graveyard dependent with Lingering Souls, Bedlam Revelers, etc. Bringing in any more of those exile cards and graveyard effects are going to be strong. I don't really think you want to board in your counter spells. Your opponent's slow enough that nothing is going to be that threatening. You have Fatal Pushes for the early pressure.
The only thing you have to worry about again is just hand disruption, I think, at this point.
It seems like Jeremy is boarding in some sweepers. I saw Bantu's Last Reckoning. I saw Damnation. It's not entirely unreasonable, but I don't know if you have worse cards to take out.
Yeah. I could see Austin potentially surgicaling Jeremy surgical extraction as well.
I remember watching a KCI game where they were able to respond to a surgical extraction by activating a mana ability and then getting some cards back from their graveyard with the Scrap Trawler and Mirror Retriever, and it negated the surgical extraction. I was like, that
hurts.
That is just like a split second. It's supposed to be a split second.
Yeah, because I can see Austin if he does turn 1 Inquisition, and if he has a surgical Jeremy's hand.
Surgical on Austin's side also I would bring in just to, you bend 2 Arclights, Jeremy targets 1, you're like, oh, I'll surgical my own so that the rest stay in my deck. It feels like Austin needs to have some kind of early pressure here.
Yeah.
You're not going to grind out your mill opponent.
Fortunately, I don't think I saw too much in terms of additional creatures come in from Austin's side of the battlefield.
And Jeremy could be running some amount of Jace's Phantasms in the sideboard.
Yep.
Which that will be a 5/5
5/5,
flyer
yes.
if a player has 20 or more cards in the graveyard.
I believe you're correct.
It's been a while. I'm pulling that one. That one's coming from the memory.
I know it's a 1/1 and it gets a +4/4. I know that for sure. I just don't remember if it's 20 cards or not.
That was a reach. I've definitely boarded out most of my removal against Mill, and then they just play Jace's
it's only
Phantasm.
10. All right, we were close.
Okay,
Yeah,
10, so
there
that's
you
not
go.
even
Yeah.
that much.
Yeah, that's 1 Archive Trap.
That's a couple of fetch lands and Faithless Looting there.
And Austin took out, I know he at least took out 2 or 3 of his Fatal Pushes. So if he can go turn 1 Jace, Phantasm, plus the Archive Trap, Austin's in a lot of trouble.
All right. I have a mulligan for Austin and a keep for Jeremy.
So I guess while we wait, I know we talked about bans. What about potential unbannings next week? Do you see any potential unbanning targets?
I've been wrong about this one a lot, so I don't know how much stock I'd put into my opinion, but I feel like nothing, if you're going to be banning 2 things and really shaking up the format, which is what I think is going to happen, it's hard to unban stuff because then you're not going to get a lot of data on how effective were your decisions in banning things. I could see them banning a couple things, then if we get through the next cycle, where nothing is too degenerate, then could look at unbanning something like Stoneforge, which people talk about all the time. I think it's a really bad idea. Some folks, a lot of people don't.
Hmm. I mean, I guess their fear with, especially with the, they're no longer called Pro Tours, right?
Mythic Championships.
Mythic Championships. Because I believe this first one is modern, correct?
It is.
So, do you hope for the KCI ban because they know a lot of pros will show up with KCI?
Oh, definitely, because I feel like Magic is really going on a PR blitz with Arena, and they don't want to destroy paper, but they're going to be promoting it a lot more at these larger events that are going to draw in additional viewers because of Arena. No one wants to watch KCI play
Oh,
on camera.
no.
It's like really boring. There's so many awkward interactions that you have to explain to people. So I could see them just for the sake of like public relations banning that card.
Yeah, especially for a big tournament that's going to be on stream. You know, we don't want another Eldrazi Winter again for a Pro Tour Modern, right?
Okay, we have Swamp into Fetch Land here.
See, Lingering Souls and a Bolt. We're going to see the Bolt the Crab.
Definitely Bolt the Crab. It's kind of like Bolt the Bird.
Because we definitely haven't seen Archive Trap yet after the first fetch from Jeremy.
When you play a Fetch Land mana base against these mill decks, you kind of just have to go for it. As long as you're not playing Dispel or something that, if they have it, it's like, oh, you got cheesed. If they don't,
I'm confused. What?
Maybe it's a Blood Moon in Austin's hand, not a Lightning Bolt. Yeah, I definitely see a Blood Moon in there.
Okay, sorry. I usually when I see white border red, it's usually the bolts.
Okay.
So that's probably why I confused it, because I didn't see the moon art itself. Maybe he fetched on purpose so that, because he knows the crab is most likely going to mill himself a few cards. You want to ensure that he gets that dual mana source.
Also giving Jeremy one less opportunity to draw the Archive Trap as well, and a Blood Moon, which is a way that maybe Austin could sort of get back into this.
I think it was a Polluted Delta or Watered Grave he just drew.
Austin forget to draw that last turn after you know the card.
Yeah, Lingering Souls in the graveyard. It's interesting math on how much, the untapping, how to use your mana.
Oh, he just missed the orb trigger there when he untapped.
I think they got. I think Austin got the orb trigger there. That's why the souls and stuff went to the graveyard. Oh, we have a very sweet Kolaghan's Command.
After we played the Blood Moon. Oh no.
We get a destroy an artifact and deal 2 damage to a creature. I'm gonna clear that up. And I think how it works is it's Jeremy's permanent. Jeremy has to remind his opponent to mill. It's a beneficial trigger for Jeremy, so Jeremy could be able to miss that.
Definitely Jeremy's struggling.
Yeah, not having blue really shuts off the cards that'll draw you for your other basics or interact with your opponent. Not a lot mill can do on 1 black, 2 red. On the upside for Jeremy, Austin just has a couple souls tokens.
Still 10 turn clock.
1 island probably unlocks a lot for Jeremy.
Oh, maybe Collective Brutality here. Yeah.
Escalate twice, so we're going to give a spirit negative, 2 -2, do a duress effect, and drain and gain.
That's unfortunate that if Jeremy had a surgical, we wouldn't have to be dealing with any of these souls.
Well, might not have to, because
He still has one more he
One
can
more in the
flashback.
graveyard?
Yep.
Okay. Because Austin is stranded, that Liliana and Souls are stranded in Austin's hand, although they can flash back Faithless Looting.
I think he just needs to keep with the pressure. He doesn't want Jeremy to get a single blue source.
I feel like this is going to be a bit of a slog here.
Yeah. Well, you have the Manamorphous. He could hold on to Lingering Souls and double cast the next turn.
Or Liliana. Although I'm not sure how much Liliana does on this board state. Blood Moon is already dealing with the permanents out there.
Inquisition looks like in hand in Austin's hand.
These are kind of painful games to watch here when it really slows down and players are stuck in the mud. And which is what Mardu wants to do a lot of times, is just shut off your opponent's options with the Blood Moon and then like chip away.
Yeah. I'm just imagining how many basics Jeremy plays. We know we saw 2 islands game 1, but does he play a second swamp?
Okay, looks like leaving Jeremy with a Bantu's Last Reckoning, a Visions of Beyond, a Hedron Crab, and I didn't quite catch the 4th card
I
there.
think I saw Archive Trap.
Archive Trap.
Yeah. On a 4-turn clock here. I believe that was the 3rd Lingering Soul, so if he hits that swamp, we could see this game continuing for a while. Maybe that was Collective Brutality I think I saw.
Well, that buys some time. Yeah, and a looting by Austin.
Think into another looting.
Something like a Bedlam Reveler could really speed this up. And Austin definitely being able to turn through their library there.
Want so you can flash back a Faithless Looting still?
If you want to spend your mana next turn, that does not seem like a bad idea. I'm going to get a Manamorphose, giving 2 red. And coming in for 5. I guess the 2 red was hoping you draw the Reveler there.
Ooh.
Oh, we
But
get...
I think he really needed the black for the Bantus though.
That's correct. Blue is going to open up some of that hand. Jeremy's going to be able to draw 3, perhaps. Visions of Beyond. It seems like Jeremy's going to have to draw some cards to get back into this game.
Mm-hmm. That was a Campbell?
Kambal, yeah, that
Kambal,
I
yeah.
doubt Austin is going to be able to cast. Sometimes these Mardu decks are now playing in basic planes, which with something like an Arid Mesa would lead me to believe that Austin is, but a lot of times they don't play the basic planes. I'm kind of at this point rooting for Jeremy because I feel like this Blood Moon has just kind of annoyed me.
I think we've all felt some kind of pain of a Blood Moon once in our career, or Magic career.
Okay, Jeremy just goes for drawing for turn. Hedron Crab, fetch land, pass. Oh.
I don't think.
Is that the 4th looting?
Yeah, I believe so.
Austin's hung on to that Kimball. Perhaps hoping, there it goes. It's like,
Maybe
I
another.
haven't drawn a plane yet. Planes yet. Don't think it's gonna happen. Okay, that's enough. Enough to kill Jeremy.
Guess we're slightly off life totals there.
Yeah, we missed the last attack.
Oh,
but-
okay.
All right. In contrast to our other rounds, this one is definitely taking its sweet time here. We got 13 minutes left for game 3. Seems like that'll be enough for both of these decks.
Yeah, blue-black doesn't really give Jeremy access to a clear enchantment removal spell, I believe.
I feel like when you're playing the 2-color deck with Field of Ruin, you have to play around Blood Moon. You fetch your basics, even if it slows you down a little bit. You, don't tap out when you don't have to if you have a Field of Ruin up. And it becomes kind of like 2 games. Like you have the sub-game of does Blood Moon matter? Sometimes you can play that game when you're on the 2-color deck, even though you play a lot of non-basics. When you can, I feel like you should play that game. And then other times you just have a really good hand and you have to be like, Blood Moon doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think unfortunately though, with the Demir deck, a lot of his spells like Mission Briefing, Bontus, and Damnation for examples, Glimpse of the Unthinkable, it is a very man-intensive casting cost on his side.
You need lots of double blues, lots of double blacks.
Or
and
blue-black,
yep.
or... So, I mean, obviously Jeremy's best hand would probably be a fetch and a basic, for example.
I feel like you can, as long as you have one of each basic, you can play the game. Blood Moon might shut off some of your cards. I'm curious how many basics Jeremy plays.
I know, again, game 1 we saw 2 islands, and we only saw 1 swamp there game 2, but usually when you play, 2-color mana base, I expect you to run 4 to 5 basics.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep. Especially if you're playing Field of Ruins, you have to have enough basics
Yeah.
to go fetch off those.
Though Mission Briefing is the one that I'm still kind of surprised to see, because again, like we talked, Snapcaster is a little less man-intensive.
I think it's purely because of Archive Trap, why that is in the deck. And Archive Trap is the best mill spell if your opponent is playing fetch lands or you're playing Field of
Yep.
Ruin, so. It's a trap.
I think that was unfortunate for Jeremy, because I think I saw 2 Archive Traps in his starting hand, but I didn't see any lands.
It does feel like the mill deck is similar to Burn in that it does not mulligan very well, and when you mulligan, you're going to need to get some of your recursive sources of milling or damage.
Ooh.
And oof, that's rough. Going down to 5. If it never feels good to be on 5, but especially when you're on the play, it feels real bad because you basically gave your opponent 3 free cards.
Yeah. Now at this point, you're really just looking for 2 lands and some possible playable card.
I think I see a trap.
Does he have to land though? Oh.
That is rough. Yeah, going to 4 against a deck that plays Hand Disruption, I'm rooting for Jeremy on this one just because winning on a Mold of 4 is sweet, but it's
4 Archive Traps.
it's not looking good.
That's what we want. 4 Archive Trap hand. But
That is 52.
unfortunately, though, Austin, I don't think has a fetch in his starting hand. I see a Blood Crypt and Inquisition. Alright, we got something playable. See an island.
Oh, that's the feel bads whenever you have mulligan that heavily is turn 1
Well,
Hand Disruption.
He's gonna be able to draw some cards though off that visions.
Well, draw 1 card.
Alright.
If Jeremy is ever able to turn this second Visions into a draw 3, that is how you'll claw out of this. It's going to be hard to do.
I don't think Austin has a creature in hand.
All right. Austin is fetching down to 17 and pass the turn. He's gonna get archive trapped here. Knew it was coming.
There's
There's
one
one
blood moon and some
moon.
bolts.
So some Reveler, some Blood Moon, Bolt effects.
So he's 5 cards away from drawing 3.
That's not nothing.
Yeah.
It seems like Austin might be a little
I do see
tight on
one
mana.
Phoenix.
Yep, I bet Drew definitely there's a land in hand. If we get a Faithless Looting here. Oh, this is going to be interesting.
Oh, does he have a
So we have
yeah.
13, 14, 15. Oh, I thought Jeremy was going to be able to
You take the
potentially draw 3 cards, but no. Yeah, seems like the card that's most mana intensive to interact with.
So did he not get the Faithless Looting? Yeah, I don't think Austin has a way to toss that Arc-like Phoenix in his deck, but I think he has the 4th land to just hardcast the next turn.
I'm not quite sure I like the sequencing from Jeremy. I feel like he did that so he could get Meal 3, but I definitely would want to have gotten the Swamp off that Field of Ruin, and then maybe cast the Crab.
I think
That's an interesting judgment call.
Jeremy believes that if Austin had the Blood Moon, he would have casted it last turn.
Mm-hmm.
Though
Oh, Austin chooses not to shock. Yep. So Austin did have a Phoenix in hand, but
so I don't think there's a Phoenix in the graveyard yet.
seems like Jeremy has a Surgical in hand and is considering what the best target is.
I think his best target would probably just be Blood Moon or the Bedlam Reveler.
At this point, you could activate your Field of Ruin to get a mill, and then I would probably start with that actually, and then see what's off the top.
I mean,
Because if you activate the Field of Ruin, then you might have a chance of getting an Arclight.
well, we'll find out if he did.
Did not, just to cast it off of Darkslick Shores.
You know, he would not have milled Arclight. Oh, dang.
A little bit of missequencing there, but
Would you have taken the Reveler or the Blood Moon there?
I would have taken the threat. But actually, I would have activated Field of Ruin and then
First,
cast
yeah.
it.
Because you have got like a Young Pyromancer, a little bit better target.
Well, your opponent would shuffle, search, and then see what the top 3 are. So
Yeah.
who's to say what it would have been?
So Jeremy still has about a 7-turn clock, because Austin has 3 lands in his hand. That was a glimpse.
All right, there's 10. And there's a second Blood Moon.
Ooh, that pesky Faithless Looting and Lingering Souls. I think Austin should be able to double cast the Lingering Souls. Well, Manamorph, yeah, he's going to get the Phoenix and should flashback both Lingering Souls.
Two red off Manamorphose. Draw on a card. 1 Lingering Souls. We got a red floating here. Are we gonna get 2?
It's gonna be a Faithless Looting.
Curious how many cards are left in Austin's deck. Looks like a stack of about 20.
So we had an Archive Trap and a Glimpse of Unthinkable. And he's fetched, played a few spells. He's probably less than 25 cards in his deck left at this point.
Another reason why I don't like not activating Field of Ruin is now your Bantu's Last Reckonings aren't going to be a top deck that you could have.
Yeah.
Just makes your mana more awkward where really there wasn't much, but we all overlook things, so that's, I've definitely made some wrong fetching flubs, but more than once in my life.
Well, Jeremy's got 2 turns. Because I believe there's at least 3 Lightning Bolts in Austin's graveyard already. So he could Field of Ruins, get the second Swamp, and hope to top deck the Bantu's next turn.
That's kind of awkward because Jeremy just drew a Hedron Crab.
Oh. Yeah, I don't think he has. I think he knows he has to go for the second Swamp.
And it's going for draw step Field of Ruin there. Austin offering to show the rest of his deck to Jeremy. Jeremy's like, yeah, you don't have to do that.
I would at least done a count, you know, if I've miscounted. Because I guess he's cast a few Faithless Lootings. Maybe I think there's at least 1 Hedron Crab trigger. Oh, he's got Collective Brutality, so he should end the game here. Yeah. And there's 10 swings, so that
It's a
should
mission
be game.
briefing.
Oh, okay.
All right, we just have about 1 minute left. Usually we do an interview here, but they're probably going to be posting up the next round, and so we're going to go check out and see who's going to be at table 1 and get that next round up here in about a minute.